Hey, so you know how we read Fahrenheit 451, and none of us are firemen from the future that burn books. And then we read Junk Life, and none of us are middle-aged dudes who have to support a mom and a daughter on lousy temporary work. And then we read Things That Can Go Wrong in Idaho, despite the fact that none of us are moms on a cross-country road trip with their two kids aged 8 and 10. But we read these things. What are we supposed to do with this? I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked. To connect with any piece of literature, one of the key things you can do is look for the internal conflict. Internal conflict is, of course, the conflict within a character's mind. This could take a few different forms. They could be struggling with a choice. They can be questioning their beliefs. Something along those lines. But it has to all be going on in here. That's what makes it internal. So I want to focus on internal conflict today, and in Schoology, I have a doc there, and I very unimaginatively named it internal conflict. And we're going to be taking a look at those three stories that I just mentioned, but I took care of Fahrenheit for you. So it provides an example of what I'd like you to do for Junk Life and for Things That Can Go Wrong in Idaho. The first thing I need you to do is to describe the character's internal conflict. And I'll take care of Fahrenheit 451's Guy Montag. And I wrote, Guy Montag struggles with the morality of his career choice as a fireman who burns books. Although the novel begins with, "It was a pleasure to burn," he begins to question what life would be like with books. He has to weigh happiness against intelligence. All right, that's a book-specific description of Guy Montag's internal conflict. It's not the only internal conflict that he has throughout the story, but I think it's a pretty good example. And then the second thing I need you to do is to tell me, how can this internal conflict be expressed universally? And by universally, I mean it can apply to everybody. And this is where connecting with literature comes in. Because like I said, I am not a book-burning fireman from the future. However, if you look at Guy Montag's internal conflict, how can you identify with that? So I put that in a sentence that can apply to all of us. All of us. And I wrote, at some point, everyone questions their beliefs. And I think that's a true statement that can apply to everybody. I mean, we hear this phrase, well, I was raised to believe, and you can fill in that blank with whatever you want. At some point, you're probably going to spend some time questioning whatever beliefs you were raised with. Now, the answer might be, yeah, these are my values, and I'm cool with that. Or the answer might be, yeah, I don't feel this way. I think I'm going to go my own way. All right, so what I need you to do is to take care of Junk Life, and I want you to focus. There's really not too many characters we can focus on, really. I want you to focus on the narrator, whose name is Timothy Jones. It was an easy detail to miss. If you weren't aware of that, don't worry about it. I had to go back and look for myself. So describe the Timothy Jones, the narrator in Junk Life. What is his internal conflict going on in his head? And then after you describe that, then find a way to express that same internal conflict in a way that can be applied to everybody. Then I want you to move on to Things That Could Go Wrong in Idaho. However, I want you to take a look at the internal conflicts of two different characters, and what that'll do is give us two slightly different perspectives on how we can connect with that short story. So first, focus on Deb, who's the mom and also the narrator of Things That Can Go Wrong in Idaho. What's her internal conflict? Now, keep in mind, that Deb and Linnea, her daughter, they certainly have an external conflict. They're having some issues, with each other. I can't have you focusing on that. That's an external conflict. So get into Deb's head. What is she struggling with in this short story? And then, and here's the key part, then express that in a way that applies to everybody. And then I want you to do the same thing again with what's Linnea's, the daughter. What's her internal conflict? What's going on in her head? And then, just like with the other ones, then express that in a sentence that can be applied to everybody. And what it might help is to just understand and realize that there's a lot of common human situations and emotions. Next week, I will show you how this type of thinking about literature can make your life with a text analysis a whole lot easier. All right, so everything's in Schoology waiting for you. These may not be answers that you come up with right away. You may have to mull some things over, but try to put yourself in similar situations. You've probably been in some type of similar situation with these characters. Granted, the similarities are going to only be so close because, we're like I started with. You're not a mom taking 2 kids on a road trip out west. All right, so but these things are there. These things are there. All right, so I'm going to shut up so you can take care of this work, and I'm out of here. Mrs. C's out of here.